Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and a Merry Christmas Eve to all of you guys out there. And the Steelers just got two great gifts before Christmas morning here that I want to unwrap with you guys here on today's edition of Steelers Talk. But before we get into the latest Steelers news here in Week 17, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Even though tomorrow is Christmas Day, I will be getting you guys not one but two Steelers videos up on this channel. And that's what we provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk. At least two Steelers videos for free on this channel every single day, breaking down everything when it comes to the black and gold in depth. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into opening our presents here. And the first one here surrounds Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar is currently dealing with a back injury, and that's not the gift, all right? I'm not trying to celebrate, an injury or anything like that, but this is more of just the news portion of it. We'll get to the gift portion in just a second. But Lamar Jackson currently dealing with what's being called a back contusion, still has not practiced this week in preparation for the Ravens Week 17 matchup on Saturday night versus the Green Bay Packers. And, Lamar apparently tried to come back into the game last Sunday night versus the Patriots. He got a pain-reducing injection in his back, and it still didn't get to the point where he felt good enough to play. So that's, in my opinion, guys, that's a bad sign that he's probably not going to play on Saturday. Now, obviously, I'm not in their building. I'm not a medical expert. I don't know for sure, but just hearing about the way that it is right now, it's certainly pointing to me like the Ravens will have to turn to backup quarterback Snoop Huntley to try and win, this football game and keep their season alive. Now, on the other sideline there in Green Bay, Jordan Love is trying to work his way back from concussion protocol. Who knows if he's going to be able to play? And then also their backup quarterback Malik Willis is dealing with a shoulder injury. Who knows if he's going to be able to play? So it's at least a possibility that even though Snoop Huntley might be starting for the Ravens, the Packers might be playing their third-string quarterback. And if it comes down to which run game is better, Baltimore with Derrick Henry certainly has at least a chance to win that football game and win that battle, especially if they can protect the football and force some turnovers on the Green Bay Packers. But, just keep an eye on Lamar Jackson, whether or not he's going to be playing on Saturday. Just so you guys know, we will be going live here on Steelers Talk for that Ravens game, because obviously if Baltimore loses, the Steelers win the AFC North Championship. So we will be live to celebrate it if the Ravens lose, and we'll be watching the entire game. So make sure you guys join us on Saturday night. I think we're going live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to hate watch the Ravens with us on Saturday night. And we'll also go live for the Steelers game against the Browns on Sunday afternoon. That watch party begins at 12 p.m. Eastern. But now let's unwrap the first gift here. Again, I alluded to the fact that it comes from Lamar Jackson, where we got a report today from a very reputable Baltimore Ravens beat reporter today, who claims that the Ravens and Lamar Jackson are at quote-unquote a crossroads that could lead to a divorce this offseason and could lead to a blockbuster trade that sees Lamar Jackson leaving the AFC North, being traded elsewhere. This report apparently says that John Harbaugh has been getting sick of Lamar Jackson's antics, even though he hypes him up to the media. Apparently, Lamar stays up late playing video games and then ends up falling asleep in team meetings during the day. He's described as being pretty aloof and not really being, an active presence in the locker room as a leader. According to this report, when it comes to a potential trade, this beat reporter claims that Lamar Jackson would, quote, love to play for either the Miami Dolphins or the Las Vegas Raiders next season. So obviously, big time report here, and obviously it's going to take quite a bit for the Baltimore Ravens to make the decision to trade away, a legitimate superstar quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who is still technically in his prime. Now, he's approaching 30, and the thing about, guys that, really rely on their athleticism when it comes to their specialness of a player like Lamar is. Lamar's superpower is that he can run the football the way that he can, and he can throw it the way that he can, all right? And you take away the rushing element of that, or if you diminish the rushing element of that, Lamar Jackson, once he gets past the age of 30, it's very possible that he's not quite as dynamic as he's been throughout his career, where he's been, a perennial MVP candidate and somebody that is seen as one of the premier weapons on offense in the entire National Football League. Now, I think the Steelers have done a pretty good job against Jackson on defense throughout his career, but obviously, he's been a big reason why the Ravens have dominated this division for quite a while now, and it's a big reason why a lot of people still think that the Ravens are going to win the division over the Steelers. It's just because, the combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is a combination that a lot of people believe in, and frankly, there's not a whole lot of people that believe in the Steelers' model of defense first, old quarterback Aaron Rodgers, that sort of stuff. So a lot of people just are going to inherently think Baltimore is better because of Lamar Jackson and the impact that he has by himself when he is out there on that football field. But if Jackson is kind of secretly wanting out of Baltimore, he wants to go play in a quote unquote fun city like Miami or Las Vegas. That's obviously fantastic news for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their fans, because if we can get Lamar Jackson out of this division, it's obviously going to help the Steelers' cause to winning more division championships. Crossing our fingers and knocking on wood that we can win this year's division championship, but we shouldn't just be satisfied with just this year. We should be striving to be perennially winning these things and in the hunt for these things. And Lamar Jackson, to put it mildly, makes that a difficult task if he remains in this division. So I think Jackson is really going to have to pretty much demand his way out of Baltimore for the Ravens to even consider this. They're probably also going to need an offer that includes 3 first-round draft picks from somebody to even consider it. I'm hoping that Miami or Las Vegas ends up getting Lamar Jackson, because obviously that means great things for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their dynamic with the Ratbirds moving forward. And while we're at it, let's get Joe Burrow out of this division as well. Now, I don't think Burrow is going to get traded, and honestly, I have my doubts that Lamar is going to get traded this offseason, but we've got, some pretty decent reporting here over the last couple of weeks that the 2 superstar quarterbacks in this division, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, are both unhappy with their situations and would kind of like to have a change of scenery. So we'll see if this situation kind of devolves to the point where both of these guys, or at least one of them, is leaving the division. But going into this season, what did everybody say? Oh, the Steelers are in a real tough spot. They gotta contend against Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, who are still in their primes for at least the next half decade in this division. But now that we approach the end of the season, neither the Bengals and probably not the Ravens are going to make the playoffs this year. And both of those quarterbacks, who are probably top 4 quarterbacks in the National Football League, if we're being completely honest, might not be in this division next year. So we'll certainly keep you guys updated on that situation. It does appear that Lamar and the Ravens' relationship is starting to, get into a little bit of a downward spiral here. And we'll certainly see how the situation unfolds as we get into the offseason. But now let's get to some Steelers injury updates today, and our second gift for Steelers fans to unwrap here before Christmas morning. And the second gift is that TJ Watt returned to practice today in a limited capacity, indicating that he is starting to really heal up from that partially collapsed lung that he suffered a couple weeks ago in a dry needling session at the Steelers training facility. Mike Tomlin did allude to the fact that TJ would potentially practice this week. He did today, and then he also said that he thinks that TJ will end up talking to the media this week. So he usually talks to the media on, I believe, Fridays. So that will certainly be something to watch later in the week. But just to see TJ out there, even in a limited capacity, he wasn't, a full participant or anything like that. It just brings a smile to your face, man. And with a couple weeks to go here, you're hoping that he can get back to 100%. I really doubt he plays this week against Cleveland, whether the game matters or not, depending on the result of the Ravens game. I think the earliest that we see him is next week against the Ravens. Like, if it gets to the point where the Steelers need to win that game to win the division, and the division is on the line next week, then yeah, I think TJ Watt is going to practice and he's going to play in Week 18, because that's essentially a playoff game. But if the Steelers can lock up the division this week in either of the ways that they're capable of doing that, I think they'll probably give him another week to rest up, and then the next time we see TJ Watt will be in the division, will be in the wild card round at Acrisure Stadium in the home playoff game that the Steelers would be getting if they win this division. So, and another thing about the TJ situation, guys, that you need to consider is that, obviously you don't want to see, your star edge rusher that you just paid a massive extension to suffer a partially collapsed lung. That's obviously not something that we want to have happen. On the other hand, though, you look at the silver lining of the situation, it's allowed him to rest his legs. It's allowed him to maybe, build up his energy and save some of his energy for a potential playoff push. And for a guy that is, on the other side of 30 now, that maybe isn't the worst thing in the world. Now, obviously, I would, if I had the choice between having that happen to him or not, I'm going to pick not. But, there's positives and negatives in every situation or most situations. And I think the positive to the situation that unfolded with TJ Watt is that he's going to be fresh, or he's theoretically going to be pretty fresh for the postseason, which is obviously a good news for Steelers fans. A healthy and fresh TJ Watt could be a very dangerous TJ Watt for the teams that come into contact with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. And then you have to also deal with Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon and Keanu Benton and Alex Highsmith, who's playing really good ball right now, Nick Herbig, who looks like he's on his way back. So I don't think we're going to see Watt this week against Cleveland no matter what, but I think there's a chance he plays next week if the game actually matters against the Ravens, and I think for sure we'll see him in the playoffs if the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to clinch this division. But now some other injury updates here. Isaac Seumalo and James Pierre returned to practice in limited capacities today, which is good news. Obviously, Seumalo is still working his way back from the triceps injury he suffered a couple weeks ago versus the Miami Dolphins. Spencer Anderson and Andrews Pete took over the left guard duties last week against Detroit. And then you got James Pierre, who is working his way back from a calf injury. I think if James is able to play, I think he's going to play. Because watching the film on Asante Samuel Jr., I won't say Asante was terrible like Darius Slay, but I do think James Pierre, consistently has probably played better than Asante Samuel Jr., showed against the Detroit Lions last week. So I think if Pierre is good to go and he plays in this game, I think he does get the start. Not to say Asante's played bad writ large. I just think, when you take the body of work of James and you take the body of work of Asante to this point, I would say James Pierre has played better. So, it's not an easy decision because Asante, as Mike Tomlin, says, is a global starter, but I do think Pierre is a very good player, and I also consider him a starting caliber player, and I think he's played better than Asante has, at least in the few games Asante's had to play so far. So if James is good to go, that's the guy that I would start. Also, Jaylen Warren has been added to the injury report with a hip issue. He was limited today, but Mike Tomlin did say on Tuesday that he feels like Warren has a very good chance to play, so not much to worry about there. Also, Nick Herbig continues to be a limited participant in practice. He got to a limited status at the end of last week, was not able to play against Detroit, but there's some optimism that he's going to be able to play this week after suffering that hamstring injury versus the Miami Dolphins late in that football game. And then Calvin Austin III, wide receiver, dealing with a hamstring injury, and Brandon Echols, your slot corner, dealing with a groin issue, did not practice to start the week. I would say the chances of those guys playing, maybe Echols a little bit better than Calvin Austin III. We'll see how those injuries and their statuses progress throughout the week. But obviously, if Calvin can't play, that's going to force Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson to really step up their roles in the offense. Now, if Calvin's able to go, then your starting three receivers are pretty much set. You've got Adam Thielen, you've got Calvin Austin III, and you've got MVS. Okay, and then you've got Scotty Miller, and then Roman Wilson will probably get a helmet, and those will be your kind of reserve guys. And of course, you still got Ben Skoranek, who, because of his injury, he's more of a special teamer at this point, more than he's an actual receiver. But you guys get my point there. And then if Brandon Echols is unable to go, expect Jalen Ramsey to get the start in the slot as the starting nickel, and then Chuck Clark to get the start at safety opposite of Kyle Duggar. So Those are the latest injury updates for the Pittsburgh Steelers as we stand here today. And then final piece of little news here, the Steelers did sign Brandon Johnson, who was with this team during training camp in the preseason, to the practice squad. He's been on the Tampa Bay practice squad all season long. He just got released from Tampa, so the Steelers decided to bring him in. And obviously with all the injuries to the wide receiver room, having a guy like Brandon Johnson who already knows the playbook, who already has some reps with Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph and all these guys, it can't hurt to put him on the practice squad at this point. In a corresponding move, the Steelers did release defensive tackle Kyle Baugh. But Brandon Johnson is back here in Pittsburgh, so no Allen Lazard, no OBJ. I know there were some whispers about those two this week, but Brandon Johnson's the guy that they bring in after the DK Metcalf suspension and the Calvin Austin III injury. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today's show. I greatly appreciate you guys sticking with me here on Christmas Eve. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas. We'll get a couple videos out to you guys tomorrow for you guys to unwrap, and hope you guys enjoy some football tomorrow, even though I know the games aren't super interesting. I mean, pretty much every single game doesn't mean a whole lot at this point, but I hope you guys enjoy some great food. I hope you guys enjoy some great company. Best of luck to all of you guys in the gifts that you receive and all that stuff. I hope you get everything that you wish for and all that great stuff. I just want to send a little love your way here, guys, and send you some thanks, because you guys have been so gracious and so good to me and Ponzi here on Steelers Talk all season long. This was the year that we have passed over 100,000 subscribers, and that's all because of your guys' support. So we couldn't be doing this if it wasn't for your guys' support and love. So I just wanted to send some Christmas love and spirit towards your way here, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas. All right, guys, that'll be it for today's show. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, here we go, Steelers.